Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. My name is Dave Jelly. I am joined by Harmon Dial and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar, getting himself some extra screen
Yeah, it's
time.
my bad. Forgot to hit the button to turn myself off.
It's okay. You're going to be a big part of today's show because I want to talk about baseball and anyone else. And not like the MLB, like you, me, and Harm hitting the park on a beautiful, beautiful weekend and a beautiful Monday as well. We hope you're having a good start to your week, folks, and had an even better weekend. We've got lots to get to today, so we're going to get to some Canucks matters right off the top. Right off the top, though, our chat is bumping. Everybody blames me when we're late. It's not my fault. It's not my fault that we're late. I'm here at least 3 minutes before every show. I'm not blaming Harm. I'm also not blaming Jacob. It's just not my fault. That's all I know. Anyways, the chat is bumping early. Hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. All right, so maybe I was blaming you guys a little bit. Jacob, whose fault is it that we're late? Is it you, Harm? What's going on? Why are we late?
Okay, well, Harm did get here right at 2:00, but the actual reason is we've been having issues streaming to Facebook recently, and it takes a lot longer to get that going.
I knew it was Mark Zuckerberg. I knew it.
Yeah, so we'll blame Zuckerberg.
That's right. All right, we got a lot to get to, Harm. First of all, Elias Pettersson. Let's start there. The Canucks lose to the Seattle Kraken, which we were expecting, right? Like you're not. That's not news that the Canucks lost the game. The big part of the conversation for me is Elias Pettersson's deployment, and I think that's going to kind of dominate most of today's show. Now, I know some people don't want to hear about Elias Pettersson, but really, he's the big part. He's the big story right now in the market, and we've got to talk about it. So, Elias Pettersson sees his ice time diminish a little bit in the second period. Then in the third period, he goes down with Nils Höglander and Linus Karlsson. By the way, I love that as a line. That'd be a great idea. I don't know why they keep going back to Kane, Petey, and DeBrusque, but that's maybe something aside from the fact. But it's a demotion. He gets demoted, and the real kicker was at the power play at the start of the third period, Elias Pettersson not on either unit.
Yeah, and I think this isn't just about one game. You look back through his last 12 games, no goals in that time frame, just 6 assists and only 10 shots on goal, right? So it's not as if it's been a span where he's looked particularly dangerous and he's racking up the shots, racking up the chances, and he just can't buy a bounce. It's been a stretch where he's really been scuffling to generate offense's own time, to look dangerous. He's not even coming close lately is the point. And it's not just that the offense hasn't been there. The last 12 games, he's been getting his teeth kicked in from a two-way perspective, where I think for most of the season, we've been able to say that even if the offense has been a little bit inconsistent, a little bit up and down, where he'll have some stretches where he's producing, some stretches where he goes cold, the one constant at least has been, well, the defensive side of his game has held up, and he hasn't been decisively losing his matchups and decisively losing his minutes. Well, that's changed lately. In this last 12 game sample that I mentioned, with Elias Pettersson on the ice at 5-5, Canucks have a minus 84 shot attempt differential. They're only controlling 33% of scoring chances, and they've been outscored 12-5. So this has been a long time coming. It's not just about one game. It's a trend. It's been a stretch of relatively ineffective hockey for him. And yeah, of course, he's saddled with inferior line mates. And I want to see him with somebody other than Jake DeBrusque and Vander Kane. And I think part of coaching is to try something new, right? Experiment with different combinations. As you alluded to, I want to see Pettersson get more of a look with Höglander and Karlsson as an example. We know, based on the first half of the season, that the trio they're currently rolling just isn't clicking and hasn't been going. But I'll also say the ice times leading up to this benching have been a bit of a warning sign that this could have been coming too. This is the fourth game in a row that Pettersson finishes below 17 minutes of ice time. So the broader point is, I understand the benching. I think it's been building for a while. This wasn't, I don't think, an impulsive decision in the heat of the moment just because of one poor outing against the Kraken.
And I think that's an important part to highlight too, is that we are only talking about it because of the no power play time and because of the, what was it, 2-3 shifts in the third period and 2 minutes of ice time in total. That's the only reason we're talking about it. Adam Foote could have snuck in, like he has been, it seems, right? Snuck in the, "Yeah, you're not playing well enough, and we're gonna decrease your ice time a little bit, but obviously you're still gonna play on the power play." As much as Elias Pettersson loves to give the line of, "I don't want to make a headline. I don't want to make a headline." Adam Foote sure wanted to make a headline because that's what he's done, and that's what the conversation is now about, is this benching and this emotion. And I want to play Adam Foote's audio from postgame because I think it's important to mention the part where he says, "And I know it'll be better next game." And that next game is tonight when the Canucks take on the Dallas Stars. Here's Adam Foote after the game in Seattle on Saturday night.
He didn't have his whatever it was. He's got to be better, and he knows that. He's aware of that. We need more from him, and he's got to find it. And that's what we. I'm sure you talk to him. He knows he's got to be, better for us, and I'm sure we'll see that next game.
And is there any specific area where you're looking for him to be better there, or is it just
in general? Like, he's got to play with more zip, like put more pace to his game, more engaged, and good things will happen when he gets his motor going. And he's aware of it, so I'm sure we'll see it next game.
It felt like Elias Pettersson has that much zip in his game for a while now. I think zip's actually a pretty good word to describe it.
Well, I think it's a lack of foot speed, and it's why I don't think benching him is necessarily going to get some kind of emotional response that leads to him going on a tear the rest of the way. Yeah, I think when you do send a message in that type of way for a game, it might have a bit of an extra spark, the same way it did for Jake DeBrusk for a couple games there. He was pumping his legs in a completely different way, looked way more engaged. But ultimately with Pettersson, I think the limitation when we talk about the lack of zip, and even a lot of times we reference the lack of shots, right? And only 10 shots on goal in 12 games. Pettersson's lack of shot generation isn't an issue of, oh, you just got to shoot the puck more. It's he's not able to separate from defenders and get to quality areas of the ice in the offensive zone and control the puck in those areas. It's all the stuff leading up to actually deciding to shoot the puck. It's not a he's shy to shoot, or he's just got to be more aggressive and got to have more of a shot first mentality. It's I think a pace limitation, right? Coming through the neutral zone, he looks kind of flat. He doesn't have that next gear to tap into to put defenders on their heels, and because he doesn't have threats on his wing either, it's not as if somebody else is going to be able to do the heavy lifting, play driving, and feed him the puck in high danger situations. So there just is no play driver on that top line right now. Somebody that can make dynamic plays, and there's not a lot of speed on it. I know DeBrusk is a quicker player, but he's more of an off puck player. He doesn't have the skill set to leverage his speed to actually drive a lot of zone entries, for example.
After the game, and shout out to Thomas Drance, he was one of few visiting media on the road in Seattle, and he spoke with Elias Pettersson after the game. And we don't have audio of that, but we did have the write-up from Tom. And basically what we saw from Elias Pettersson was like, oh yeah, I need to play better. It's the coach's decision. I respect the coach's decision. And yeah, I need to play better. I want to get back to that in a second, but here's what Elias Pettersson had to say when he met with the whole pool of reporters back at home today. This is Elias Pettersson this morning. Hear it for yourself.
I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, I haven't lived up to expectations of the contract, and I'll be the first one to say it. Obviously, I wish I would be different. I'll have play better, a lot more points, but it is what it is. I'm just trying to play a good game tonight and see what happens.
That is significant because that's the first time we've heard him say anything like that. That's different than I need to play better, even though he did mention the words, I need to play better. That's significant. That acknowledging the contract and that he hasn't lived up to it, that's significant to me.
I didn't find it as noteworthy because it's just stating the obvious, Right.
Yeah.
It is the most accountable part of that scrum from this morning, which yeah, I like that accountability. I think up until that point, he was given a lot of one word answers and pretty snippy. And I didn't love that part of it. But let's be honest, when he says I haven't lived up to my contract, we all know that.
Yeah, did Louis
And
Eriksson ever say that though? No.
but it's different, I think, because well, first of all, how many times was Louis asked to talk to the media?
Fair enough.
And secondly, Louis very quickly, like Louis was never expected to be the best forward on the team, right? He came in and was with the Sedins, and then it didn't work. And then by the time, like everybody had already accepted it was an anchor contract. So why are you going to keep asking Louis about that deal? I mean, even last year we heard Patrick Alvin around this time last year straight up talk about the contract and how he needs to live up to it. So I think everybody knows that part of it. I think you could tell from the broader availability that he seems beaten down, understandably, right? It seems pretty joyless, and I get it, right? It sucks to be in this situation where you're underperforming individually. The team is in 32nd place. You've just been benched. You're inevitably going to be asked a bunch of questions about it. The one thing I would like to have seen from Pettersson at any point over the last 12 months when he's been asked about his struggles, I'd like to see him provide theories or an explanation or any kind of insight into why he thinks it's happening. I think that's it. Obviously wouldn't solve the issue of him needing to play better, but I remember at the end of last season specifically asking about the skating speed is down, the shot velocity is down. Like, do you have a theory behind why that slipped? And he just left it at I don't know. Clearly didn't want to get into it, and I think he has made a conscious choice to be guarded with the media. He's obviously very careful and intentional with his words, and that's fine. That's his decision. But it does leave everybody just guessing all the time and having to lean on our observations. It'd be nice to get some theories or insight from the person that's going through the struggles.
And it also comes with frustration from the fan base, right? Now, this one's from T. Rogers as well. He said that's never going to happen, Harm. Not after management freaked after he mentioned his knee tendonitis at the year end.
I suppose, but it can't just be injury.
Yeah,
related.
exactly.
Like, come on,
exactly.
He's got we all see he's not the same player, and you can't chalk it up to.
I had knee tendonitis.
Yeah.
Elias Pettersson is an interesting conversation right now. And we had some added context from Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman on Saturday night headlines on Hockey Night in Canada. And Friedman was reporting that the Canucks are not willing to retain on Elias Pettersson. We've been talking about that for a while. It would be shocking. It was always going to be shocking if the Canucks did want to retain. Like, that would be the more significant news. But the reason I bring that up is that today, a lot of the conversation that I think people are having is, okay, it's time to just move on. If it's just time to move on from Elias Pettersson, because the trade deadline's on Friday, right? And we saw a report from Bruce Garriock in the Ottawa Citizen that the Detroit Red Wings are aggressive in their pursuit of Elias Pettersson. Interesting, because the Red Wings are also talking to the Canucks about Tyler Myers, who continues to sit out, isn't going to play tonight against Dallas unless something changed. I think that's still accurate. Yeah, Tyler Myers still not playing tonight against Dallas. But we saw this Pettersson stuff flying around this weekend, right? And the reason I want to bring up the fact that the Canucks won't retain is that it feels like they're at a crossroads now where they basically have to decide, okay, are we going to move him at this deadline? Are we going to move him in the summer? Or are we going to just keep him for next season and keep him throughout? Because you're going to add a franchise player to this team, and you need to decide as a team, as an organization, is this who we want to be our top guy that is kind of the leader in that room right now, especially among the forward group? Is this who we want to be setting the example of what it means to be a Canuck, what it means to be the highest paid Canuck? Is this who we want in that spot? Because we're about to have an impressionable 18-year-old who we're hoping can turn into a stud for us come in next year. That's why it feels like this is kind of a crossroads for the Canucks, at least in my mind, is you either decide to move him or you're deciding that, yep, this is who we want to keep around and have kind of insulating and helping out the next generation of Canucks. And I think that's the question that Canucks are kind of asking themselves right now.
And before we dive too deep into that, I think two options that we need to remove off the table right away. The Canucks should not be paying sweeteners to get off of the contract. If that's the equation we're talking about, where the Canucks are going to have to pay to get off the deal, that doesn't make sense to me. And the buyout route, I've seen some people throwing that out there. You look into the actual math of what a buyout would look like. It makes zero sense because of how front-loaded it is, because of how many signing bonuses are part of it. The relief you get is very minimal, and you'd be tying yourself to a dead cap charge if you bought his contract out this summer until 2038. We'd be pushing 40, you and I, and Elias Pettersson would still be on the books with a dead cap hit of $2.1 million of the Canucks bottom out. So buyout makes zero sense. Should never be brought up with Elias Pettersson. When it comes to the trade and the contract and weighing those possibilities, so he's got 6 years left after this one, 11.6 as we know. I think the way that I'm viewing it is, in the short and medium term, the Canucks don't need to get off of Pettersson's contract, right? The opportunity cost isn't that high. They're going to be near the bottom of the league for the next few years, and cap space isn't the weapon that it used to be, right? Where if you get off the contract immediately and you get free up around $11 million in cap space, it's not as if it's going to radically change what you can do. The league's changed compared to the flat cap era, where cap space, like the what you can do with cap space is limited as a result of fewer players reaching free agency and fewer like difference making players reaching the trade market. What I will say though is, when I look at the Pettersson contract and the team's trajectory, what I'd be worried about is year 5 and 6 that remain on his contract. Year 5 and 6, that's when you'd assume that the Canucks are on an upward trajectory, that they've got this new nucleus, that they've got this new core. They've spent a few years drafting top 3, top 5, and so they have the franchise changing players. And at that point, Pettersson will still be under contract, and he's going to be in his age 32 and age 33 seasons. The concern I have is he's a 55-ish point pace player right now at 27 years old. What if he declines further? Right? It's not uncommon for players to decline in their early 30s, right? You look at just JT Miller, right, as an example that everybody will understand. Miller, through his late 20s, right? You look at his age, from his age 28 to age 30 seasons, he averaged 95 points per season, right? We're talking about an elite top of the lineup star. You see JT Miller at 32 years old now in New York, he's playing at a 60-point pace, right? So Pettersson's starting at an even lower baseline through his late 20s right now. And so if he starts to decline, there's a possibility that he, at the age of 32 or 33, is not the second line center that we're talking about right now, but is a third line center chewing up 11.6 against the books at a time when you're hoping to be on an upward swing, and you potentially have some game breakers on entry-level contracts that you might want to take advantage of. So with that in mind, the take I kind of have is I want off that Pettersson contract at some point. The tricky part, where I can't sit here and say that I have the perfect solution or the perfect answer, is what's the optimal timing to pull the plug, because there are competing forces and dynamics at play the way that I look at it, right? Where one incentive that could make it harder to, or like one factor that could make it harder to get off that contract, is if you hold on to him for next season, right? Because you're thinking there's no rush for us to get off this deal. We're going to be bad for a few years. And why supposedly sell low? Well, if you hold and he stays at a 55-ish point level for another season or two, teams are going to be less likely to believe that, hey, we can acquire him, rehabilitate him, and turn him into a 70 to 80 point player, right? The more distance there is between
102,
that 102 and even the 89 the year after and what he is today, the further that gap is, the less teams I think are going to have the belief that we can, with the change of scenery, fix him.
That was going to be my main point. Is like if we're talking about selling low, at least you're still able to sell. You're not taking an asset back, or excuse me, you're not giving up an asset with him. We both agree that that's ridiculous. But this idea that, oh, just hold on to him, that was going to be my main point that I brought up today. That was really the main thing I had to say on the matter was, I brought up the thing about insulating your young players and the example that Pettersson is setting for the rest of them. I don't like that they were questioning his work ethic a year ago, and now these are the results. And B, I just think that this core kind of needs to be moved on from completely. I don't think there's many vets on this team worth keeping around and worth having as being a part of the next Canucks team. Go sign some vets that you really like in free agency. Go ahead. Go sign those guys to 1-2 year deals that you are just end of their career. And that's the thing that the Canucks, people don't understand this. That's the thing that the Canucks are going to have an edge on people in free agency is, hey, we don't have the best scenario right now. Yeah, you got to go practice at UBC every once in a while, but we could pay you $1-2 million above what you're able to get on the open market because we really need players and we really want you. And we have a ton of cap space. So we're going to be able to overpay for you. Think about Jason Dickinson in Chicago. That contract signed by any other team. Everybody's thinking like, what the hell is going on? And then you read about it and you think about the unique situation and it's, okay, this guy's been a really good vet for them. And he's been a really good player in the room. They have cap space. They're rebuilding. They're not going to spend it on anyone else. So why not give it to a guy that you like, that you know, that you trust? The Canucks can go find some of those guys. Is Elias Pettersson that guy? I don't quite think so. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but you had more to say. And I cut you off a bit there, but I had to jump in with that.
No, that was a good time to jump in. The other key point to add on to what you mentioned is the Dickinson example and what Chicago has broadly done with some of their other vets too, is they've gone high AAV short term.
Yeah.
Right. The short term is key, right? You don't want to go into free agency and doesn't mean overpaying on guys doesn't mean you're signing 4, 5, 6 year contracts. It's all right. You're finding the older guys and you're saying, we'll overpay you on the cap hit, but we're only giving you 2, maybe 3 years of term.
Yeah.
That's important. And the other factor I wanted to bring up in terms of the, like, a lens to potentially view it through where you could say, well, this could be a reason to hold on to him and think that his asset value could improve is this is a front-loaded contract, meaning the majority of his salary is paid out at the start of his deal. And if you look at the last 3 years of his deal, he's only owed $8.7 million in actual salary per year, despite the $11.6 million cap hit. Teams and owners care about that more than you'd imagine, right? When players are acquired, it's not just what's the capital player, it's the salary, because that's what owners are actually paying. And so, for instance, when the Canucks took on Oliver Ekman-Larsson's contract, I believe part of the appeal was OEL's contract was also front loaded. So it was more palatable for ownership to sign off on, hey, we're willing to take this contract on. When he has 3 years left, let's say 3 years left, and there's less salary owed relative to the actual cap hit, and by that point, the cap's gone up even more. The center market keeps inflating. You've got a window ahead of, let's say, the 2029, 2030 season where you could, as the Canucks, time it, hopefully, where let's say he's around 30-ish years old by then, 31, like right before he turns 32, 33. You could try to cash in on his value. And with 3 years left at that point, it might actually be palatable. Like you could ask ownership to maybe retain $1 million of cap space and further juice the return, right? Where it's a lot easier to sell. Hey, could we retain a small a small
Yeah.
piece of it to, let's say we're going to get a first round pick and something else as part of this deal, as opposed to, hey, he's got 6 years left and we're asking you to retain. The point being, there could be a possibility, presuming he maintains a reasonable level of performance, where teams would be in on him. And ultimately that's the bet is.
But it's been 2 years, Harm. What are we talking about with reasonable level of performance? Like, are you saying right now this is a reasonable level of performance? Because I think any team trading for him is trading for him with the understanding and the hope that we can get more out of him. We can get more out of him. We're going to buy low. At worst, we're getting a 2-3C that's really overpaid. But at best, we paid pennies on the dollar for a guy who's back to that bona fide 2C, being a number one center for us. Like that, to me, that's the equation. And like you said earlier, the longer it goes on at this level, and it's been 2 years now, the fewer teams I think are going to be involved.
Well, what could change it is what happens in the lottery, right? If you end up with the top 2 pick this year, and you end up with Gavin McKenna, and you can throw Pettersson onto his wing for the next 2 or 3 years. And let's even forget the possibility of 80 points, right? If you throw Gavin McKenna on his wing and he bounces back to, let's say he's a 65-point guy per year, and then you reach that window ahead of the 29-30 season where, like, look at the difference in how much salary is owed, right? So he was paid $14.5 million this year, $11 million next year, 14.45 the year after, 12.25 in 2028-29, and then it drops to 8.7 ahead of the 29-30 season. So let's say he maintains, let's say, a 65-point level rate, because let's say he's playing with Gavin McKenna. Then you look at the 2029 offseason as, all right, this is the time to capitalize where teams could be interested. That's when he could actually have more value than he does today. That's what you're weighing. I'm just laying out the different factors that you have to consider.
Let me be clear. You're right about all of that. But this plan that we're going over now is way too forward thinking for the guys. If Gavin McKenna comes to Vancouver and Elias Pettersson bounces back to, 70, 80 points, whatever you want to say, first of all, that's a lot of ifs. But also, the lesson isn't going to be, and the takeaway isn't going to be, oh, okay, good. Okay, now he's got trade value. Let's trade him. It's going to be, oh, he's back.
I know.
Awesome. Let's keep him. Let's actually accelerate out of this rebuild a lot sooner than we thought we had to, because Petey's back. That's good. Like, I don't know, man. I also
I think a smart organization though does sell high. Look at what the Penguins did with Jari, for example. They didn't buy into, oh, look at this heater he's on, and we have an opportunity to contend for the playoffs. They went, Tristan Jari's playing well. Let's flip him as soon as we can.
Yep, a smart organization would. You're right. So I don't trust the Canucks to do this plan that you're laying out. I'll be honest.
That's fine. I think my default preference would be for the Canucks to try and move off of him this summer.
Okay, so
assuming he has some semblance of value.
Okay, so let's talk about the value. Let's talk about it. Let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by our pals at Tim Hortons. If you feel something exciting in the air, that's because roll-up season is officially back. You can still play on the cup while supplies last, but don't forget to also play on the Tim's app, which means more chances to win just for doing what you're already doing. Getting Tim's. There's a wide range of prizes to be won, from gift cards for various brands to physical 5-burner barbecues. I keep saying it because I'm manifesting that I'm going to win that. Roll-up season's only around until March 22nd, so don't wait until it's over to realize that you forgot to play. For more info, check out timhortons.ca/rollup. Roll up to win, only at Tim's. Okay, I went to Tim's over the weekend. I got one of these breakfast bowls. You seen these? They're delicious. It was so good. I got the scrambled eggs, hash brown, little chipotle sauce in there. Oh, it was delicious. And it's like 24 grams of protein. It's it was pretty damn cheap too. I was very, very pleased. I didn't know they had those, and I ordered it and it was delicious. So, and I got roll up on it because I ordered through the app and then got it on the app. I've won 2 drinks now just from one order. I did one order. And I won two coffees, so I'll be heading back. It's an
Damn,
unlimited money.
you and Dave Hall both lucky.
Well, Dave's what do you say, 4 for 6? I think I did, like, including the cup, right? Because wife got a tea, I got a coffee. I think including the cups, I think I ended up having like 10 rolls, and I won 3 that time. So Dave is shooting way better than me. His percentage is way better. He was 4 for 6. I'm like 3 for 10. But I'm eager. I'm eager to head back there. And I mean, I won 2 free coffees. So at the end of the day, this is a big positive. Anyway, our poll question. It's about value. It's about Elias Pettersson. Would you be okay with the Canucks trading Elias Pettersson for a second round pick or less just to get off his contract? Honestly, when I made this poll question, Harm, I was thinking people were going to be just absolutely furious and just saying, no, don't give him up for a second. That's so low. 44% of people say, yes, I don't want him around. And then 55.4% say, no, keep him at that price. What do you say? If it's a second round pick, like if the Canucks have a second round pick on the table at this trade deadline, and they have an opportunity to get off Pettersson's money for a second round pick, do you take it?
At the deadline?
Or summer? Sure, I don't care.
I was going to say, I would be hopeful that the center market would shift in your favor by the offseason, right? You think about, for example, JT Miller, right? And when the Canucks were forced to make that trade ahead of the deadline, and we knew just how toxic it seemed like the situation had become, that the Canucks had to make that trade. They couldn't wait until the end of the season, but ahead of the deadline, part of the reason why the Canucks couldn't get the best return for him was because there just weren't many teams that you could look at as realistic suitors for him, because moving that cap hit in the middle of the season was just difficult. I would be hopeful, but what happened then you notice how different the rhetoric became in the last summer, where it was no team can find a center and everybody's looking for a 2C. I think the market for a player like Miller would have been more robust last offseason compared to last year's trade deadline. So with that logic in mind, and just how many teams can fit $11.6 million against the Bucks in the middle of the season, I'd be hopeful if I'm the Canucks that there's going to be a slightly better market for him in the summer. If you get to the summer and a second round pick is the best you can get, I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty underwhelming. That'd be pretty disappointing. I think it partially depends on the lottery, because with Pettersson, the decision to hold or to pull the plug now for a mediocre return in this hypothetical of a second round pick, it really just depends on how confident are you that Pettersson can produce more over the next 2 or 3 years and rebuild his stock, even if it's halfway rebuilding his stock. If you end up with a third overall pick and you're looking at a scenario where you're likely getting Keaton Verhoff or Chase Reed in the draft, and you're probably striking out on McKenna or Stenberg, then the question I have for next season is who's Pettersson going to play with next year that's going to get him back to being even a 65-point guy, like a 65, 70-point guy. And in that case, as much as I would hate the idea of giving up for a second round pick, you'd have to consider it if you're the Canucks. On the other hand, if you wind up with a top 2 pick and you're rubbing your hands together thinking, hey, we're going to get one of McKenna or Stenberg, then guess what? I'm more confident that Pettersson has a chance to bounce back. Maybe not right away next season, because it's an 18-year-old rookie we're talking about, but that at least over the next 2 or 3 years, at some point, he's going to have the type of winger that can unlock better performance out of him. Because let's not forget, as much as we criticize the player itself, and there is a lot to criticize the player for, we're talking about a player that's had to drag around Evander Kane on his line for most of the season. And if McKenna can become like a game-breaking winger, and all of a sudden he's able to feed Pettersson for chances, and Pettersson doesn't have to drive play as much offensively, well, then at that point, a second-round pick seems light. And it's not to say if you win a top 2 pick that, Pettersson's not for sale, but the threshold is a little bit higher. And at that point, I would want a first-round pick.
Really good points. Really good points. And I think your logic about the offseason is sharp, because the way I look at it, right? Like look at a team like Detroit, for example, right? Just throwing out Detroit as an example because of the report from Garriock. If Detroit's interested now, what are they going to see over the next 23 games that's going to make them say, no way, in the offseason?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they trading for anyone else? Probably not, right? Like, and again, I think that would be the only concern, is they pivot to someone else. But my broader point being, anybody who's interested right now, at least one of them is going to be interested in the summer as well. Honestly, I'm a little torn. I lean toward what I was saying earlier about, like, you have to make the decision of if this is who you want to be your quote unquote culture carrier and setting the standard for your organization as you bring in the next real stud, right? Like the next guy that you're hoping can turn into a really, really great part of your organization. And for that, I want to get to just comments from the chat, because we've got a lot of thoughts on that. Let's get to anyone else, which is a presentation of our friends over at Greta. Great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line and not have to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 for select drinks, and more. They've got the arcade, the bar, and the street food menu. Greta's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the next game. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right, just some comments from people about Pettersson, and then Jacob's got the actual buyout math for us as well that he's going to get to in a sec here. This is from Saltaire Brew. He said, it feels like Canucks fans are not going to embrace these players anymore. They've been a complete failure. Need to get rid of all of them. Honestly, like, that's kind of the direction I'm leaning toward, and the one I've been talking about for a while, of when they talk about, well, we got to keep some of these veteran players. And it's why after a 4-game win streak, when Alvin came out with the retool, the hybrid form, it was why we were so passionate about why are you trying to retool around these guys? Like, what have they done to make you think this is who we need to drive us through to the next era of Canucks? And honestly, unless things get better with Pettersson, I don't know if I can confidently say anything other than, yeah, it's probably time for both sides to move on. This is from Big Ratone in the chat. He said, Canucks needed to stop listening and start making calls weeks ago. If any team is willing to bite on Petey, take another bad contract on, or retain a couple million. Do what you have to do. Guy is the blackest cloud of all time. And again, it goes back to the conversation we've had about the environment getting toxic, right? It doesn't feel like the Canucks locker room is a super fun place to be right now, and you've got a lot of young, impressionable players coming up. And I'm not saying that, like, they're going to lose again next year, so that's not fun, right? Like, it's not fun to lose, but how you go about that. And again, we point to the San Jose Sharks kind of as an example of a fun place to lose, right? Where it was, hey, we know we're not going to be very good. We've got a lot of young players, but it's going to be a pretty good environment for these guys to come up in. I think we point to that, and I think you have to just kind of weigh if Pettersson is going to be a part of that, or if he's like I said, you don't want anybody that's going to poison the well. And I'm not necessarily saying that I think that's what Elias Pettersson is. I think the Canucks have to decide. They have to decide. They should know better than us. They should know better than us about what's going on in that room, and they have to make that decision. I just think it's really important that they make a clear and conscious decision this offseason, or this trade deadline, whenever, when it comes to what they're doing with Elias Pettersson. Like, I don't want to hear this, we're kicking the can down the road thing, and, maybe he bounces back. It's no, we are comfortable with this player. We think he's going to be great for us in the future, on the ice, off the ice, or it's, we think we just need to start fresh. The player needs a new change of scenery, and we need to start fresh ourselves as well.
I do think the Canucks need to show some, if they're going to trade Pettersson this summer or ahead of the deadline, they need a somewhat respectable return, though, right? Like, if it's just a second round pick, I don't think even though all the points you mentioned are true, I don't know that that's going to necessarily excite the market. And I think this is where this is going to be a test, this dilemma of the front office's creativity of how do you maximize an asset that is polarizing, that has a lot of pedigree, has that high water mark of previously hitting 102 points, and maybe a team out there looking at it as maybe we can get him to 70 to being 70 to 80% of that. Where like, look at how the Coyotes, for instance, found a way to school the Canucks in that Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade, right? The Oliver Ekman-Larsson contract also had 6 years left, and they got really creative by bundling him with Connor Garland, who at the time was about to hit his mid-20s, a really valuable piece, and they took on three of the Canucks' worst contracts that were all expiring. And we saw that was a wicked return. And I'm not saying the Canucks can realistically pull off something like that, but the point being, the Coyotes showed a level of creativity with a rapidly declining asset in OEL, and they made out really well with it. And it was a level of just like creativity, problem solving, outside of the box thinking that that really pushed that franchise forward. They got Dylan Guenther out of that trade, right? So I think that's part of it. And one hypothetical I wanted to throw at you, right? Let's say you get to the offseason and the best you can, let's, for argument's sake, say the Canucks end up third overall, right? So you don't know if you're going to get one of McKenna or Stenberg, and you're looking at it and going, we don't know if Petey is going to bounce back next season. We'd like to get off of the contract. The best a team's offering to take on the full freight of his contract right now is a second round pick. Well, in that case, like, one thought I had was I would never want to retain a big chunk of that contract, but if there was an opportunity to, let's say, retain $1 million on that, and let's say he's a $10.6 million guy to another team, and I can bump that second round pick up to a first round pick, would you do that? I think
100%.
I think I'd do that, because $1 million, like, that's not a back-breaking amount to retain. The cap's going to be in the mid 140s range in a few years. And if I can get that return to being a first round pick, I'll do that. The point is, I guess it would just be disappointing, no matter the circumstance, if the best you can do for Elias Pettersson in the summer is a second round pick. I think you've got to bare minimum find a way to get a first round pick in a Pettersson trade, even with him not performing well right now, and even with some teams perhaps being scared off by that contract.
This management group, especially when the team was fighting for playoff spots and everything, this management group got their flowers sometimes for, look how quickly they move off of mistakes. Look how quickly they're ready to move off of mistakes. This is a pretty big mistake, this contract. And I'm not sitting here saying that I was sitting there and saying, oh yeah, no, don't sign it. Don't sign it. We knew Elias Pettersson was going to get the contract, right? Like, they kind of had no choice. It feels like the real mistake is the Bo Horvat decision, right? It feels like that's kind of all just the more you follow the path, the more it leads you to, oh yeah, that guy that was your captain that you decided to move on from. That's kind of where it all started to fall apart for the Canucks. All right.
So before we wrap up on Pettersson, I do want to go through the buyout stuff, because there's still people in the chats talking about just buy him out. No, you cannot buy him out. Here's why. So, as Harman mentioned, front-loaded contract. If you buy him out right now, then you are going to save next season $8.8 million. That sounds great. Why do you need $8.8 million in cap space when you're trying to finish dead last in the league? You gain absolutely nothing. Okay, 2 years from now, you'd be saving $7.2 million. Still, 2 years from now, they are not contending for a Stanley Cup. They don't need that $7.2 million. By the time the team is probably pushing for a playoff spot, let's say 2030, you're only saving $1.5 million from having bought him out. His contract alone would end after the 31-32 season. So if you retained on him, then you would only have that on the books until 2031-32, which is probably timeline-wise when this team is really like trying to be a playoff team, trying to push forward, trying to win. After that, if you bought him out right now, from 2032 until 2038, he will count for $2.155 million against the cap. All those years from 2032 until 2038, what would you be trying to do as a franchise, assuming that your rebuild right now actually follows the normal rebuild curve in the NHL? You would be trying to win a Stanley Cup with an Elias Pettersson buyout on your books. You cannot buy him out. Like, hard stop. We have to stop bringing that up. It makes no sense. If you want to retain on him, and I know Harm gave like 8 different options on what you can do with this contract. Like, Harm cooked all show long. You could do this, you could do that, you could do this, you could do wait and retain later, retain a little bit. Like, there's so many other options that aren't buying him out, because a buyout would just destroy this team's chances when they're actually trying to contend. Like, I know the cap's going up, but like, are you telling me in 2033, when they're like in a playoff push, and they wouldn't like to have $2.1 million to spend at a trade deadline, let's say, being able to maybe add a third line piece, or, a third pair defenseman that could really help establish your depth? That's what you have to think about. And you cannot do that if you buy him out. My rant is over. I've been seeing it for months on Convo and Rinkwide, and just people don't really understand how buyouts work with certain contracts. Puckpedia has a buyout calculator. Go check it out. You can see it has the perfect breakdown of every year, what it does to your cap, and you will see that this contract is buyout proof.
All right, Jacob, great stuff. Both of you, I want you to guess. If you've seen the tweet that I'm referring to, it was from Gavin's Knucklebones. That's a good name. On X, who he's a listener of the show. If you've seen the tweet, don't answer. If you haven't, I would like both of your guesses of what over the past 2 seasons, 24-25 and 25-26, what Elias Pettersson's cost per point has been for the Canucks. Cost per point is what we're looking for. Take your time, write it down, Jeopardy style, whatever you need to do. Give me a guess.
I haven't thought of my guess yet, but I'm gonna assume it's probably the worst in the league. Am I right in saying it? Maybe Huberdeau might be worse.
Huberdeau, your hint is that Huberdeau is better, and so is Ivan Provorov, and so is Elias Lindholm.
Oof.
The worst is Darnell Nurse is worse.
Okay.
And I think Trent Frederick is also worse.
That would make sense.
So we got 250K in the chat.
I was gonna say 250, maybe 250.
I want to give the people a chance. I want to give the people a chance to guess. Give me your guesses in the chat to see, because again, live show always on a bit of a delay, right? And if you're in your car, take a guess. If you're listening on podcast, just take a guess what you think Elias Pettersson over the last 2 seasons, the cost per point has been for Elias Pettersson. I'll give you some comparables while you guys wait, while you guys come up with your guesses after this short commercial break. I'm joking. Don't play a commercial in there, Jacob. Ivan Provorov, 287,736. Jonathan Huberdeau, 242,379. And Elias Lindholm, 182,353. Nick Pocek guessing 350K. Walk, 283.
280 range? I'll clock that in as my guess.
Okay, 280. We've got 450 in the chat, 300, 125 in the chat coming in. S Little Boston says 397. Jacob, do you have a guess?
I was going to go 250, but seeing some in the threes, I'm going to bump it up a bit. I'll go 260.
It's 290,000 per point.
Wow.
Like I said, Provorov, 287. Huberdeau, 242. Elias Lindholm, 182. And shout out to Gavin's Knucklebones on Twitter for the work there, because that was that was a good tweet. That was seeing it in there was that's pretty bonkers to be honest. But again, it kind of puts into perspective of like why we're having this conversation. Anytime we talk about Elias Pettersson on Instagram, I don't know what it is about Instagram, because there's some really good content on there. Like it's its own little world and its own little ecosystem with the like the hockey pages on Instagram and stuff. A lot of good Brady Tkachuk content comes out of Instagram, but we always get this, Canucks Army's anti-Pettersson. Here's another anti-Elias Pettersson clip or post from Canucks Army on Instagram. And it's like, we never get that on the website. Like, we don't do that on the website. I mean, at least not with within reason. But I think we're being pretty reasonable on the clips too. But anyways,
And,
we have
the same clips go up on all the platforms too. So your point with it being its own ecosystem.
Facebook loathes Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, well,
dude,
yeah,
the
exactly.
sunglasses, you get like 9 sunglasses in a row of like, get this guy out of here. So anyway, don't clip that either, Jake. But yeah, I wanted to at least share that. So yeah, like I said, shout out to Gavin Dunkelbones on Twitter. All right, anything else, Harm?
I don't think so.
Oh, I had one. Matthew Schaefer named the NHL's first star of the week with 4 goals and 1 assist in his first 3 games back from the Olympic break. Do you think he might have been eager to really show that he probably should have been named to Team Canada?
No, he's too humble for that. He's too humble to.
He's too much of a great dude. The more I learn about Matthew Schaefer, the more I'm just a massive fan of this kid. Like
I watched that that game against the Panthers, the tail end of it, and the Isles are actually I found myself watching way more of the Isles this year than I thought. Not just because of Schaefer, but you got Bo Horvat there too.
Yep.
And after seeing him play for Team Canada again, I want that guy to have a chance to play in the playoffs this year. And then even just in general, the Islanders, I mentioned this before, this isn't the Barry Trotz Islanders from like 4 years ago that would trap it up and play a low event defensive style. They open things up. They're fast. They're quick. They bleed a lot of chances defensively and rely a lot on Ilya Sorokin, but they open things up. And yeah, I mean, it's a treat to watch Schaefer, Horvat, and especially Schaefer, Horvat, and Barzal on the ice at the same time, because lately the Isles have been stacking Barzal and Horvat together. A lot of fun to watch.
Isles have won 5 straight. For those keeping track at home, by points, they're tied with the Penguins for second in the Metro. But Penguins have 2 games in hand on them. So shout out to Matthew Schaefer, man. Pretty damn awesome. Link for the Family Feud survey is in our description for those wondering. Yeah, people saying it's the Calgary Flames this week, Jacob. Can you concur?
What about Calgary?
That they're the Family Feud survey equivalent so far.
No. People think that, but the early data is way tougher than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, I did see a question though asking about like cost per point, and what the cost per point is for some of the top players. We don't have a ton of time, but maybe this is something that we can get into tomorrow, because obviously like guys who are still on entry level deals and putting up numbers, they're going to have the best cost per point. Because if you're only paying a guy $925,000 and he puts up 100 points in a season, that's easy math that you can do. But yeah, I might, if we want to talk about this tomorrow, because we are going a little long right now, I can get a list of some of the best value contracts in the league, and we can circle back if we'd like.
Remember Andrei Kuzmenko when he was at the top of that list forever?
Yeah.
Those were the days.
But then even then, like, you know, there's going to be highly paid players who still have a pretty solid cost per point just because they are good, right? Like McKinnon and McDavid obviously are being paid a lot of money, but they also put up more points than everybody else. So I'll get the actual numbers.
Celebrini must be leading
my guess is
mile and a half.
Celebrini has to be leading the league, right?
By like a wide margin.
Yeah, like not even close.
All right. Okay. That was all I had, was the Schaefer thing. Baseball. We played baseball this weekend. Harm, you got your black cleats. You're looking less colorful on the field, but your swing is coming along, Harm.
Thanks, man. I'm having a lot of fun. It was such a blast. We were out there for like a solid 2 hours.
2.5 hours, yeah.
We did everything. We were shagging fly balls. We were taking BP. We had like, how many of us were there? Like 7, 8 of us?
10. Yeah, we ended up with 10 total. But yeah, and then 12 if you include the babies that were there.
It was a blast until my brand new bat snapped after my second round of BP.
Yeah.
Last swing.
That was tough.
Yeah.
I'm really glad it wasn't me and Quads borrowed the bat before.
Yes.
So I'm just really glad that, like, I would have felt awful if it was on one of my swings that, like, oops, I shattered your bat.
I'm gutted for you, Jacob, but I am also very glad that it was you that broke it, not one of us.
I know. I am too. It just makes things a little easier and less awkward. Although it would have been pretty funny if we could have rolled into the show today. And the first thing I say when I turn my mic on is Quads destroyed my brand new baseball bat on Saturday. But
missed one, so I broke it over my knee.
Yeah.
All right.
Do we still want to do our tankathon for the day?
Yes. Yeah.
No, thanks.
No. We committed to it. We're doing it.
Who's we?
We the show. All right. If you remember last week, Calgary moved up twice to take first overall.
No, Vancouver, 3 times. They did it again on Friday. It was 3.
Was it?
I thought it was twice.
I thought it was 2 Calgary.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, it was 2 Calgary. Vancouver got it once.
And then
Florida got it once. Yeah. I have the full list elsewhere. But all right, here we go. For the first time this week, we are simming the lottery. And
they're down to third again. Oh my God.
With the New York Rangers and the Chicago Blackhawks being able to pair up Connor Bedard and Gavin McKenna.
This is why you have to be bad for multiple seasons, folks. This is why you have to be bad for multiple seasons. Like, Chicago's been bad for multiple years, and they're in a position where they could go get Stenberg. Like, how did they end up with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane? Like, how did that happen? Anyway.
Well,
this is why you have to be bad for multiple years.
Even watching the Sharks lately, Michael Misa has really been turning it on.
Yeah.
And it's like Michael Misa is better than anyone the Canucks have in their system. And like not even particularly close. And he, like, no one's talking about it because Macklin Celebrini has been doing Hart Trophy level stuff. And you forget, there's a number 2 overall pick that they're going to be able to slot in right behind Celebrini as well.
Okay, I want to ask you about this. Your colleague Thomas Drance went and watched Landon Dupont, and his takeaway was that Landon Dupont's like the greatest defenseman ever, it sounded like. And I stress again, this is why you have to be bad for multiple years. You need to be in a position to at least have a shot at drafting that kid.
Well, not even him, but also Alexis Joseph. And there's some Russian forward out there that's producing at a crazy clip. So, yeah, I mean, Dupont's the main prize. He's the projected number 1 pick for 2027. But the top of that list in general looks pretty amazing. You don't need first overall necessarily to end up with a potential franchise-changing player in 27.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, boys?
No.
All right. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. Oh, my goodness.
And sorry, I will correct this. Quad's right. Calgary won 3 times last week. It was Calgary, Florida, Vancouver, Calgary. And so now 6 times through, Vancouver's picked first overall once, second overall twice, and first overall once, second overall twice, and third overall 4 times. So yeah, there you go.
This is so much fun. I'm so glad we do this every show.
It's going to be fun to have the data at the end, and then hopefully it reverse jinxes them.
Dude, and then I'll get my ping pong ball experiment, the only one that actually matters. Anyway, looking for home underdogs. The Canucks are 1 tonight against the Dallas Stars, but we're not going to take that one. We're instead going to go with the New York Rangers at home. They are plus 100 underdogs against the minus 120 Columbus Blue Jackets. We're taking that Rangers money line at plus 100. You can get that over at Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. We will wrap it up there. For my co-host, Harmon Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Boeser. My name is Dave Wojcicki. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.